In the chapter titled An-Naml, the ant, in the Quran, we come across one of the most fascinating and awe-inspiring stories. The exchange between Soleman, then a powerful king and a true ornithologist, and the Hoopoe, a species of birds. The latter had just arrived from what appears to be a reconnaissance mission out in the kingdom of Sheba, with intel which he promptly debriefed Soleman. As verse 22 through 27 relays it, the Hoopoe makes an observation which till this day continues to elude scholars. "I found her," said the Hoopoe, "prostrating to the sun instead of God. Would they not prostrate to God who brings forth what's hidden in the heavens and the earth, and knows what they conceal and what they reveal?" Now the observation we're referring to here is that of prostrating to the sun instead of God. We said eluded many scholars and exegetes because of how deceitfully self-explanatory it strikes its readers. It's not immediately appreciated how intellectually rigorous the statement actually is, mostly because it's not obvious, not even remotely, that the whole society was in some way collectively worshipping the sun, nor for that matter what the sun represents. What our impressionable imagination presents us are images of monuments and temples, with carvings and engravings depicting in some way the sun, stone effigies of sun deities, cults and festivals, the town plan, the style of its architecture and clothing, the language habits of its people, their idioms and folklore and poetry, phrases used for greeting or consoling, its national holidays, etc. These are the kinds of things that one imagines the Hoopoe would have seen. But that isn't the case. What he saw was much subtler and nuanced than that. The outward displays of worship, architecture and language as mediums of worship don't meet the more ontological criteria of Sujood, as these could simply be inheritances, mechanical habits void of their original numinous and spiritual motives, like Christmas or Easter today. So bold, so sweeping a statement as that which the Hoopoe relayed to Soleman could not have been made without a comprehensive survey and study of the kingdom, true, but not comprehensive in the human, industrious sense of statistics, records, and testimonies. Humans, when learning about each other, precisely look for the things listed above, and even when we turn our attention to the animal kingdom, tend to anthropomorphize, often unconsciously. We look for specifically enterprising qualities and gauge general intelligence on strictly human standards, naturally leading us into constructing a universal hierarchy whereby the more human-like an animal is, that is, the more conventionally innovative and sophisticated, the higher the position they're allotted in that hierarchy. This ontological error is most clearly shown in the field of zoology, particularly zoosemiotics, or the study of animal communication. Here, the anthropomorphic fallacy in its Darwinian guise is strongest, since we're dealing with a non-human reality. An animal language is studied by analogy to our own, since that's all we can do, naturally leading us to assume that we, and the animals that we're studying, occupy the same phenomenological reality, and share the same horizon, that we're competing for the same things, hence the Darwinian maxim of the survival of the fittest. Thus we find in the literature of those adhering to this worldview ideas suggesting that human language is the perfect model which animal languages are approaching, but may never attain. It's naively asserted, furthermore, as in this study, that non-human animal communication is limited to, quote, repetitive instrumental acts directed towards a specific end, lacking any formal grammatical structure. Among other claims, we read that they lack compositionality and are mostly concerned with requests for food, or to alert against danger, or to coordinate organized activities like hunting, etc. But aren't these conclusions too general to mean anything? Too general not to be true? Too general to be a scientific account of what makes man and beast linguistically different? For don't all our human language expressions, however grammatically sophisticated we deem them, however rich in metaphors and imagery, and however eloquent or poetic they happen to be, still ultimately reducible to those same so-called primal ends as claimed about the animals? I could be yelling a sonnet from Shakespeare, or a passage from Dante's Divine Comedy, or a quote from George Poole's Laws of Thought. For all the animal knows, I'm either requesting food, expressing an emotion, threatening, eliciting, etc., any number of which is true. They are, in their ultimate or fundamental truth, illocutions devised to elicit action, or responses, be they requests, alerts, coordinates, or else, which they undeniably are. It's our humanity that makes those subtler aspects of speech audible to us, that makes us appreciate the shadings of meaning, the vehicle of expression, the topics, the grammar, the sources, the metaphors and idioms. We see more here because it's our humanness that so dictates it. As humans, we possess a phenomenological horizon unique to us, that enables us to see more than the general plan of existence, and so do non-human animals, and insects possess their own unique Weltanschauung that's as inaccessible to us as ours is to them. Is there anything that humanity does, be it industry, art, or sport, whose ultimate end isn't to communicate a need, acquire food and resources, or organize activities? And are these the same ends as guides all possible human activities? What's a skyscraper or a large apartment complex but a kind of human nest? Or a shopping mall but a large food repository? The material out of which the building is made, the metal and copper, the glass windows, is meaningless and invisible to the animal, as is the intricate system of transactions and the long chain of legal and economic and historical connotations and presuppositions by which food is acquired in those repositories. It's therefore not those things which the Hoopoe's eyes would have caught, but the ends to which they were directed. Such is the definition of Sujood. As said in the previous video where a discussion of the concept of Sujood was had, the Sujood is not prostration in the physical sense as widely understood, but a principle of motion, a two-part scientific concept describing how by simply being and fulfilling their biological needs, we're, by default, oriented towards God's cosmic scheme. Our bodies function the way that they do on their own. We have no control over that. Secondly, how in addition to the involuntary side of things, we possess the capacity for free will, to make choices, to choose how to orient ourselves, how to act, and what sort of ideas we let orient us. The monotonous and mechanical nature of our biology, the cyclic rhythms of systole and diastole, inhaling and exhaling, here do all the essential work that maintains us. By so doing, they free up and dedicate a margin of energy for the mental aspect of life. As in the biological sphere, so is the case in the mental life. All hierarchies are so structured as to have a creative minority and an uncreative majority. A strata of individuals, typically at the bottom, do all the monotonous work, which then frees up those in the upper strata to do the more creative, unpredictable, and case-specific work. As conscious, thinking, feeling individuals, we're more or less the product of this long and complex chain of mechanical processes. And as these intricate machines that we call our bodies exist for the sole task of giving us mental freedom, so can this mental freedom be drilled and mechanized after the manner of our bodies in service of things deemed more important. As noted, Sujood is only attained when the mental aspect, which the physical frees up, is mechanized in service of an ideal. As a rule, this ideal must occupy for the individual the highest possible position. There can be no ideal, no prospect higher than that which is an object of Sujood. We call this deontic. These are what are typically called ideologies or the raison d'etre. To return to the Hoopoe, the sun to which he refers is not the sun of our modern cosmology. Not so much a physical object with certain chemical properties, a violent, fiery compound of helium and hydrogen. The Hoopoe sun is a metonymic sun. In language and literature, we tend to use terms outside the original contextual domain. We draw from a word like light, enlightenment, from fruit, fruitful or fruitless, etc. This transfer of meaning, this morphological play on words, reflect real metaphysical processes. To procure from a term like light the metaphor enlightening tells us something about the phenomena of light, that its real meaning is drawn from its morphological application. That is, their true meaning comes from their relationship to things. We specifically transcend the material reality of these objects in pursuit of their metaphysical reality. The earth here isn't the composite of dust, dirt, and trees and mountains that we know it to be, but rather earth is the background on which appear all these diverse forms, on which they are actualized. If we hold, after Plato's doctrine of forms, that reality as it appears to us is just a pale copy of that which exists in the world of ideas, where they have their true origin and being, then we can begin to approach the meaning and being of the earth. Specific trees and bodies wither and die out, but their ideas, that is, bodiness and treeness, don't. They're what continually generates them as well as what they're generated after. It's to the notions of things, their eidos, that Plato's meutic exercise is directed at in the dialogues. Earth is not a plane on which accidental farrago of objects are found, but rather the canvas on which appear actual forms of life. It represents a process of transmutation, from treeness and bodiness to actual trees and bodies. Likewise the Sama, which isn't the sky as we short-sightedly understand and see it, but the ethereal region which parallels the material, which, much like the earth, has a metaphysical bearing. The Sama is the world of forms, as conceived platonically, where the plans of things are contained. When we think, not see, trees and bodies, we're actually perceiving their forms, as they are maintained, in the Humean phrase, in their readiness to start into existence. It's in this sense that we are to think of the Hoopoe sun. It's our failure to figure out this true morphological being of the sun that had us contend with a physical description of it. Though the method by which to unlock them is demonstrated clearly in the Socratic dialogues.